None appearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carries unanimously. We do have some announcements tonight. The town hall will be closed on Monday, April 18th, in observance of Patriots' Day. National Prescription Drug Take-Back Day is Saturday, April 30th, 2016, from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. at the Charlton Police Department, 85 Masonic Home Road. The Charlton Earth Day Cleanup and Festival will be on Saturday, April 30th, 2016. Cleanup is all day. Festival is from 11 a.m. until 2 p.m. You can visit www.townofcharlton.net for more details. The last day to register for the May 7th town election and the May 16th annual town meeting is Friday, April 15th, 2016, 9 a.m. till 8 p.m. in the town clerk's office. That is this Friday. So again, if you need to register to vote, you want to register for the annual town meeting, you need to do that by Friday, April 15th. The town clerk's office will be open from 9 a.m. until 8 p.m. Senator Goby's aide, Tyler Wolonin, will hold office hours on Tuesday, April 19th from 3 to 4 p.m. in the Selectmen's Meeting Room. And lastly, we will be having a candidates night, May 4th, at 6 p.m. at the library. All candidates running for office, contested or not, should attend, as well as any potential write-ins. Do we have any other announcements? Do we have anyone here for open forum? 1 second, sir. Chief?
Just, it's more about Earth Day.
Sure.
Good evening. I'm Todd Gerard, the Town of Charlton's Conservation Recreation Director. I think we all know Chief Purvia. Today we were discussing the Earth Day Festival we have coming up on April 30th with the Earth Day Committee. I just want to go over a few bullet comments and get the citizens of Charlton aware and up to speed of what we're trying to do for the festival. Charlton Earth Day is going to be Saturday, April 30th. The Earth Day cleanup is from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. and you register for the cleanup by signing up online on the Town of Charlton website for the particular road you choose. Trash bags and gloves will be given away at the Senior Center beginning at 8 a.m. along with a free t-shirt and a lunch. Following the cleanup, we're going to do an Earth Festival on the Town Common, which will be from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. We have live music. We have informative booths such as the Garden Club, Organic, Second Chance Animal Shelter, 0 Point Energy System, and others. We're going to have a pet show, and all the children of Charlton can register their pets for the pet show on the town website by April 27th. There will also be a recycling art show for residents of all ages. Prizes will be given at your art show at the on the Common in the Senior Center. Bring your art by 11 a.m., please. It's going to be a fun-filled day, and I hope to see a lot of people out there on April 30th. Chief?
To the chair, just as a reminder, the Charlton Police Department will also have our child safety seat checkpoint, and we'll have seats, and there'll be the lieutenant and another officer, servicing vehicles that come by. So make sure that people avail themselves of that, because they'll be here to take care of that from 10 a.m. till 2 p.m. And so it'll be a good day, a good chance for people, if they're down the ball field or what have you, going by and say, geez, I'm really not sure if my seat's in correctly, or was my seat recalled. They will have those answers, and they'll be able to take care of those needs. We do have a fairly good inventory of replacement seats if somebody has something that's outdated, or if somebody's in need of a seat. And so it's going to be a real good day. The committee just wanted to remind everybody, cleaning up the town is a great thing, but today is, well, always, but, we also want to emphasize taking care of our environment. And so the 30th is a good way to re-examine that, and all of us work towards that end.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Todd.
Thank you very much.
Thanks to the whole committee for the work that goes into putting this on. Sir, if you'd like to come up. If you would introduce yourself,
How you
please.
doing? Jimmy Falzone from 18 Denfield Road in Charlton. Here about the Gulfwood Road closing. And about a month ago, DOT representatives, both towns got together, site walk, and talked about doing some test boring of the shoulder road, and we haven't heard anything. So trying to find out what's going on. Has the holes been dug? Because it looks like some holes have been dug, and if there's any information that I can send back to the neighborhood.
Sure. Ms. Craver, do you have?
I actually think I have some information in my town report, which you'll have to wait a minute, because I've got to scroll down to page 70 in our packet, and then I can take a look. So it'll be very anticlimactic if it's not there. But I can tell you that the highway superintendent has been working on this. It's not been ignored. He's been trying his best to try and figure out how to get that road opened and put the things that we need in place. So let's see.
I drove down there a
There we
week or
go.
so ago. It looks like Denfield Road has been widened a little bit and is more passable.
Just that one end of it
That one
on the
end of the,
Southbridge side, but it's
yeah.
still,
Okay.
I mean, the signs that the chief put up, the town put up, they help, but they
Okay.
still ignore them and fly by.
Ms. Craver?
So if you don't mind, I'll take my portion out of the town report.
I would appreciate it if you would.
People can go home if they don't want to wait till the end. Gulfwood Road update. Highway Superintendent Foskett has stated that on March 22nd, 2016, multiple test borings were done to determine what the options would be to improve the safety issues. He received the results on March 30th and will be meeting with the engineer of McClure Engineering as well as Heather Blakely, the DPW Director for Southbridge, to discuss options. He will also be setting up a meeting with Southbridge to discuss the issues of beavers downstream. The beavers must be brought under control to move forward with any other part of this project. It is his hope that a cost-effective solution can be reached to meet his goal of opening this road. So that's all the information I have at this point. He's going to be working with the town of Southbridge on some of the options.
So was there any discussion whether the shoulders are hot enough to hold guardrails or anything structured like that, or is it?
I don't have the particulars.
No, in talking with Jerry, what they did is that he's got the data back from his test borings. He and McClure are gonna go over it and see, see exactly what the data tells him. Other than that, he doesn't want to say yay and nay yet. He wants to have an engineer look at him, which is what McClure is, and they'll look at that. And then, as the town administrator said, he wants to try and do something to remediate the problem further downstream, to let some of the water, out of there. So, it's an ongoing project. It's not anything that's gonna be corrected in short order, because we're gonna do it the right way. So, that's about all the information we can give you right now.
Okay,
We're working on it.
well, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone else here for open forum? Then we will move on. We have two resignations this evening. The first one is resignation of the Assistant Animal Control Officer. When you're scrolled back, Ms. Craver,
I'm at 43, I'll get
you gotta get to
12.
14.
Using bigger isn't always better.
It's one of the downsides of saving paper, huh?
So, attached is a letter of resignation from Lisa Westwell, our Assistant Animal Control Officer, effective Friday, April 15th, 2016. She will be working with Mrs. Salou, the Animal Control Officer, and the Town Clerk's Office on turning over the clerical duties and related files regarding animal control. Mrs. Westwell has been a great asset in this capacity and has brought in thousands of dollars of revenue to the town. I wish her well on her future endeavors. The board should accept her letter of resignation. A letter thanking her for her service has been completed and is in your sign folder. Mrs. Salou, Chief Purvier, and I are reviewing a recommendation for this position.
Thank you. Any questions, comments from the board?
No, through the chair.
Mr. Zafirovich?
Yes.
I move that we accept Ms. Westwell's resignation as Assistant Animal Control Officer.
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion on the motion? None appearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Next up, we have the a resignation from our WRTA member, Scraver.
Yes, sir. Attached is an email I received from WRTA regarding the town's WRTA Advisory Board member, David Schiller. Mr. Schiller has resigned his position from the board due to his schedule. At the board's March 15th meeting, you approved an alternate position for this board, which has been placed on cable and the web. We will add this position as well. The board should accept Mr. Schiller's resignation, and a letter thanking him for his service has been completed and is in your sign folder.
Very good.
Through the chair.
Mr. McGrath.
I make a motion that we accept Mr. Schiller's letter of resignation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion? None appearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carries unanimously. We do have a 6:45 appointment for the Boston Post Kane Award. Ms. Graver?
Yes, sir. At the board's March 15th meeting, the Boston Cane Committee came forward with a recommendation for a Boston Post Cane recipient, Howard Seifert. Mr. Seifert is 98 years young as of March 24th. He has lived in Charlton for 70 years. It is a pleasure to welcome Mr. Seifert. Is he here? Yes. To welcome him, and a tremendous honor for the board to recognize him with the Boston Post Cane Award. The Board of Selectmen clerk has the plaque, and I have the cane, so perhaps we walk to the front.
Terrific.
They're gonna come over to you. Stand right here. You can stand.
Good evening.
You're gonna take pictures?
I hope so. I bet someone's gonna take at least one picture. The Kathy's here, they'll be funny, they'll be pictures. Ms. Cooper?
This is a plaque which will be hanging in the town hall to commemorate your receipt of the Boston Post cane.
And this is my pleasure to present to you. This is the Town of Charlton Boston Post Cane Award to you, Mr. Seifert.
Perhaps we could have Mr.
If
Seifert
we
come
could help
forward.
him over this side?
Where to?
Right over here would be terrific, if you can. And we're gonna make this just like they do in the newspaper. I'm gonna shake your hand as we hold this and let everyone get their pictures. Kathy will work this. Kathy will do magic. You can say with my age, I'm not getting to the point where I can say this too often, but you've been in Charlton longer than I've been alive, so. It's a great honor and a great pleasure of mine to present you with the Boston Post Cane. And we, on behalf of the board, we wish you many years of continued health, and we hope you're with us in town for a good long time yet.
Can we ask him if he has any words of wisdom to reach the right age of?
I am 98. It's possible that I may see the century mark. I certainly have enjoyed living in Charlton because I came here 70 years ago. And stayed here because I married a woman from Charlton.
Wise man. Wise man.
There's not much to say, you know. My great-grandfather came from Germany in 1839. And my doctor says I have good If so, I'll take it.
Mr. Seifert, we have a cable,
I have a lot of relatives out there. I see grandchildren, great-grandchildren. I hope they all have many years to live, even the ones in the corner.
And we hope you do as well.
Mr. Chair?
Yes,
can I have
ma'am.
a moment,
You
please?
may.
Daddy, wait a minute. On the occasion of Howard's 98th birthday, which was announced, that was back on March 24th, his great-granddaughter Lara posted on Facebook what I'm about to share. Although Howard does not do Facebook, I read it to him on his birthday. And Lara wrote, "There will never be a man in this world who means more to me than this one. Your wisdom, patience, humor, music, and soft-spoken words fills all of our hearts with love. I believe I can speak on behalf of all of our family members that Lara's chosen words really do offer up who Howard is, and how we truly feel about this oldest man in town as the most recent recipient of the Boston Post Kane Award." And she did put a PS for the Post, happy birthday, Papa.
Well, congratulations, and again, many years of health to you. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah, we'll,
Thank you.
that is the good stuff. That's the fun stuff.
so, you have a 7 o'clock, I don't know if they're here, do you wanna do the Lions first?
Yes, we will do we're gonna, with the board's indulgence, we're a little early for our 7th, so we'll jump into new business. And our first item under new business is a Charlton Lions Club request for toll road. Ms. Craver?
Yes, sir. Please find attached from the Charlton Lions Club requesting permission to hold a toll booth at the intersection of Route 31 and Masonic Home Road on Saturday, May 14th. The rain date is May 21st from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. This event is being held to raise money to support the Mass Lions Eye Research and other community causes. This request was also forwarded to Chief Purvier, who is in support of the toll booth, contingent upon the following safety guidelines. All volunteers must wear bright colored vests. Orange traffic cones must be set out on Main Street and Masonic Home Road for a distance of not less than 50 feet on each respective way prior to reaching the toll station. A minimum of 5 traffic cones on each roadway should be put in place at a distance no greater than 10 feet apart. And lastly, warning signs saying voluntary toll booth ahead must be erected on both Masonic Home Road and Main Street, not less than 75 feet from the toll station.
Very good, thank you. Any questions, comments from the board? Then I would entertain a motion.
Oh, I see how it is, Mr. McGrath. Give me the long motions. Mr. Chair,
Mr. Zafirovich?
I move to approve the Charlton Lion Club's request to hold a toll booth at the intersection of Route 31 and Masonic Home Road on Saturday, May 14th, 2016, with a rain date of May 21st, from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., contingent upon the following safety precautions. All volunteers must wear bright colored vests. Orange traffic cones must be set out on Main Street and Masonic Home Road for a distance of not less than 50 feet on each respective way prior to reaching the toll station. A minimum of 5 traffic cones on each roadway should be put in place at a distance no greater than 10 feet apart. Signs warning voluntary toll booth ahead must be erected on both Masonic Home Road and Main Street, not less than 75 feet from the toll station.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Make your last name shorter than McGrath and you'll get the long motion. None appearing, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Next up, we have a site plan application for ZPT Commercial Solar Array. Ms. Craver?
Yes, sir. Attached is a copy of a site plan application submitted to the planning board by Meridian Associates on behalf of ZPT Energy Solutions LLC to construct a 1 megawatt commercial solar array, solar energy generation array and associated utility connection on approximately 4 acres of the total of 32.5 acre St. Joseph's Church property located at 10 H. Putnam Road. The board is asked to review and provide comments, if any, to the planning board no later than Wednesday, April 27th. If you remember, the planning board provided information, which I noted in my town administrator report at the meeting on March 15th, regarding commercial solar energy site plans and the zoning bylaw revision, which requires a site plan process, allowing them to require proper site design components, including stormwater management, access driveway design, and fencing and landscaping. I say this because we are often asked to have them consider proper barriers. It is part of their process to determine if it is needed. Does the board have any additional comments?
Does anyone have any comments they'd like to attach to the site plan review?
No.
No, if you would note that then, Ms. Craver,
Yes,
thank
sir.
you. And lastly, under new business, we have a request for Charlton House of Pizza and Seafood, a request for a common victualler, which is a coffee food license. Ms. Craver?
Yes, sir. Attached is a request for common vicular license, which is coffee and food by Gemini Brothers Incorporated, doing business as Charlton House of Pizza and Seafood at 1091 Masonic Home Road. All proper paperwork has been completed. The request has been forwarded to the building department and fire department, whom both have approved. It would be the recommendation for the board to approve.
Through the chair.
Mr. McGrath?
I make a motion that we approve the common victular license for Charlton House of Pizza and Seafood.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? None appearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carries unanimously. Good luck, gentlemen.
I believe the.
Yep, I believe so. We're going to back up. We're just about on time for our 7 o'clock appointment. Gentlemen, if you'd like to come up.
Would you like me to begin?
Ms. Craver, if you would, please.
Certainly. At the board's last meeting, Liberty Utilities came before you seeking a letter of support. They are looking into an interconnection with the Tennessee Gas Line and to provide gas to residents and build businesses in Charlton and Sturbridge. They would like to serve our local downtown area, schools, Masonic Home, and then out to Route 20. After discussion, the board members wanted time to do their own due diligence before a letter of support is approved. Liberty Utilities was asked to come back for this meeting. At the meeting, there seemed to be some confusion over the 2 potential projects in Charlton related to natural gas. I asked if they could address that at this meeting, as well as to make the different companies and project more clear for you and the residents watching. They said that they would also research to see if there were any grants available to help municipalities switch over from oil to gas. So they're here.
We
Thank
don't
you.
have, what happened to the microphone from that table?
I got it.
Thank you. Yeah, we might want to take 2 as we have a couple of spares. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, gentlemen, and thank you for coming back.
Good evening. Thank you for having us.
And if you would introduce yourselves for the folks at home, please.
My name's Mike Matee. I work with Liberty Utilities. I'm part of the corporate business group. To my immediate left is Jim Carey, who's part of the Liberty Utilities New England Natural Gas Company, which is the potential franchise holder that we've been discussing. And he works from the customer group, and he'll be discussing some of the grant opportunities that we think may be applicable here. And Gary Monroe, you may remember, was with the group last time, and he's our operations and engineering person. Jim Sweeney sends his regrets. He has a medical procedure which prevented him from coming this evening, so he apologizes for that. To address what Robin said earlier, there appeared to be some confusion regarding which entity that we were requesting the potential letter of support. What I did do was prepare a kind of the organizational chart, for lack of a better description. Could I approach and?
Absolutely.
wanted to emphasize was that we're here to talk, to representing Liberty Utilities and the natural gas distribution system that would be an underground system to serve residential and commercial accounts in town. Just to kind of walk through the organizational chart, the lower left is Liberty Utilities New England Natural Gas Company Corp. And I've identified some of the people that we've introduced, and that's the Massachusetts state-regulated natural gas distribution company that's currently in existence and serves customers in the southeast Massachusetts that showed you that map in the previous presentation.
Excuse me.
That is the entity that we are requesting the letter of support for, that business entity. That entity goes up to Liberty Utilities Co., okay? I think part of the confusion was my participation. I work in the business development organization, and I work for Liberty Utilities Co. My responsibility is to deal with different business initiatives that the company's looking at on energy infrastructure. And so I support the Liberty Utilities New England Natural Gas Company. I also support other business opportunities that the company's looking into. So on the right-hand side is that other business opportunity that we've alluded to and is our joint venture, and we have a partner in that company. And so you can see that there's a break between those. They're not the same business entity. We're not here to speak on behalf of that particular entity at this time. We would welcome the opportunity to speak to the board at an appropriate time on that. But today and the previous meeting, we would like to focus on the Liberty Utilities New England Natural Gas Company. So hopefully that helps clarify the confusion, and I apologize for any confusion that may have created with the board.
It does, thank you.
If you, we have two things. One, if you have questions about the entities, we're happy to try to clarify that. If there are no questions regarding that, we could have Jim speak to the potential grants that may be appropriate or applicable to the municipal buildings in town.
Is there anyone with any questions regard to the structure of Liberty Utilities? No? Then, by all means, please.
Sure, okay. Good evening again. My name is Jim Carey at CAREY. I am the Senior Manager of Customer Relations at the company. I cover energy efficiency, the billing, the credit, all the customer service areas. And I'd like to talk a little bit about our energy efficiency programs. And I thought maybe I'd even talk a little bit about the residential programs too, because you might be interested in that. Liberty Utilities is a member of Mass Save. Everybody's probably heard of Mass Save. And as part of the Mass Save program, you know, we comply with the Green Communities Act that was established back in 2008. And since 2011, Massachusetts has the #1 energy efficiency programs in the country, which we're proud to participate in. And through the Mass Save program, it's electric and gas utilities and a couple of municipal aggregators. So what we do is we offer energy efficiency services to basically every utility customer in the state. As part of the Green Communities Act, we have to do all cost-effective energy efficiency. And for a typical residential customer, we have incentives that go from, for instance, weatherization measures. For a typical customer, we'll cover 75% of the cost of insulation, up to $2,000. We have rebates on gas high-efficiency equipment that range from $25 up to $1,600 for residential customers. When you get into commercial and municipal customers, we have programs where we have rebates on weatherization. We do 75% up to, it's a pretty high number. I can't quite remember what the number is, but it's a similar program. We have rebates on big equipment, say for a municipal building, for schools. We have rebates on boilers up to about $10,000. We have rebates on water heating, infrared heating. We do air sealing as part of the services that we provide. It's all transparent to the customer, and we work with the electric company. So when we go into a municipal building, we'll take a look at the whole building. So if we came in here, we'd look at the lighting, we'd look at the heating, we would look at the water heating, and this building is in pretty good shape for an older building. So if there was other opportunities, you know, I see the windows in newer, but what we'll do is we look at the building as a whole, and what we try to do is do it in one stop so that you're not dealing with multiple vendors and multiple entities. And we have a pretty successful programs down in our service territory. We're based in Fall River. We've worked with the city government, we've worked with the housing authorities and other entities. In the town of Somerset, we did the Central Fire Police Station. We put in infrared heaters in that building several years ago, a very successful project. And what we try to do is when you're, especially if you plan on building any new municipal buildings, what we try to do is get to the town at the design phase. So, you know, the building's not 3/4 erected and said, oh, you know, what do you have for high efficiency? So we try to do it right at the design level so that we can maximize efficiency.
I'm sorry, and should you come up to this area, those same services would be available?
Yes, the great thing about the Mass Save program and the Green Communities Act, we basically run the same types of programs and offer the same types of services and incentives across the roughly 300 cities and towns across the state. So it's a national model, and it seems to work really well. And what we try to do is, you know, get the towns, you know, and businesses to talk, because, you know, sometimes you might be dealing with, down in the town of Somerset, they built a state-of-the-art new high school, and, you know, we got in there in the design phase, and you know, they were, you know, they talked to other towns to see what worked and what didn't, and, you know, we sort of like rode the coattails of some of these projects.
Anyone have any questions, comments?
Just,
Can I-
well, go
go
ahead,
ahead.
Cindy.
Ms. Cooper?
I have some questions not related to what he just presented. Is that okay? As I understand your request, you would like to have a letter of support from this board for Liberty Utilities' concept of gas distribution. And I'm wondering if there's a reason why, and that you would like it to be exclusive. I'm wondering if there's a reason why this board would support your request over a different company's request.
Well, I think that we obviously have approached you, we've done research in this area, we spent a reasonable amount of time looking at this opportunity. We think it would be a good opportunity for us, and we think it would be a good opportunity for the community. We think that we can provide a quality service to the residents in the area, and that we would certainly welcome your support. We have, since our first meeting, reached out to a few of the larger accounts in the community. We've spoken with the Bay Path School, and we've spoken with Overlook, and both of them seem very encouraged about and would be very interested in receiving natural gas service. You know, I think we've taken the initiative to look in these towns, in the immediate area, and we would hope that you would support our application.
I have more questions. I have a report from an emergency in Keene, New Hampshire, where there was an incident that could have affected many of the customers in that town. And I was just wondering, how would you assure the safety of the residents of this town?
We have I don't know if Gary can probably speak to the safety record of the company much more than I can, but maybe just a quick distinction between Keene, New Hampshire and this particular situation. Keene, New Hampshire is a propane air system, and which has, Gary's more technical than I am, but it's different than providing natural gas distribution service. Propane is slightly different than natural gas. So I don't know if, Gary, if you can speak to some of the safety and different aspects of that.
Well, in terms of Gary Monroe from Liberty Utilities Operations Director. I can speak to the specific incident where that particular incident was where they actually add air to the propane and then distribute it through the underground pipelines to make that gas more equivalent to natural gas. And what happened was they had too much air going into that system, and it caused the burners or the equipment at people's houses to cause and create carbon monoxide, and that was the risk. So in terms of the product that we would be delivering, that risk is not there because it's natural gas, pure natural gas that we deliver. In terms of emergency response, as I alluded to 2 weeks ago, we would have someone local here that would be able to respond to someone that was to smell it, or someone that possibly was digging and actually hit it or damaged something that was underground, so that we could be there quickly to make the area safe, cordon off the area, where appropriate, even shut it off, because sometimes it isn't appropriate to shut off. You could just make it safe by clearing the area, making repairs, and then not having to shut off people and interrupt their service. And if it's in a home, then sometimes it would be a leak on their piping, and we would assist them by securing it, but they would have to get a plumber to make a permanent repair. And in our system, we would replace things that are leaking. Now, as I had mentioned, we would be building a plastic system, and a plastic system has many advantages in that it doesn't corrode. It is quite resilient to natural forces of the earth and frost, and it's had a very, very successful history. And the product we use is one of the best available because it's a high-density material. So the reality is we would have to have someone local that was fully qualified, well-trained in order to respond to those types of issues. However, the scenario that happened in Keene is not one that could happen with what we're delivering.
You have other questions, Ms. Cooper?
I do.
Please.
I was wondering if Liberty Utilities has ever used eminent domain in order to put in any of their systems.
I cannot recall any. I don't believe so.
I have to check, I don't know.
Now, in terms of the entities that were mentioned by Michael in the business development, that's a possibility with other business enterprises. But in the local distribution operation, we typically build in right-of-ways. We typically would acquire easements if we need to cross someone's private property, which then would give us permission to be there without taking ownership of the property. And usually the reason we would do that is if I want to serve your home and I have to cross someone's property, if they're willing to give me an easement to serve you, then I know that that pipe could stay there without them asking us to cut it off. So it protects the person who was serving by having that legal easement, and that would be the approach I've always used. So eminent domain is typically for the cross-country pipelines or transmission-type pipelines, where we're in the distribution business, and that we're not in the business of doing that.
Could I keep going?
You may.
Would you be amenable to paying a franchise fee?
I don't know how to answer that one. I'm not sure the answer to that. I
Well,
don't
we
think
would-
it's historical.
I can't answer that. I think that's something we would have to go back and ask some questions about. As a utility within the city, we would be subject to personal property tax. Are you alluding to something that would be above that or different than that?
Yes, more than property tax.
Personal property tax. That's something we can inquire into.
That's it.
Is that Ms. Cooper? Thank you.
Through the chair.
Mr. McGrath?
I did some background, and in the cities that they operate in, they have pretty much a stellar record, as was alluded to, especially on the side that I know a little bit about, which is roadways. They use a different model than a lot of the other utilities, where they'll not do the repair to the trench. They'll do a temporary repair, and then they come back and do a full repair after everything's settled. And it seems like the people, at least at MassDOT, are very happy with the way that works out in the roads that they've dug in District 5 down there. so that was a good thing. One of the things that I did look up, because we talked a little bit about it, was they partner with AVSG, I think it is, for the fueling of vehicles. You know, that was one of the
CNG.
things, yeah. And that seems to be standard with the way National Grid runs theirs, and Boston, the old Boston Gas, because we have a lot of their facilities on our property throughout the state. We've never had any issues with it, you know, and I know that there's some concern about another entity that they operate. So I did a little research on that. It seems that even that is pretty much the same thing as the fueling that takes place on the vehicles for the PSI that they run the tanks at, what they're compressing it into, would be no more, you know, and this is it's something not even on the distribution system, because I know there's a lot of talk about, you know, big pumping stations and this and that. If they ever came forward with something of that nature, it's pretty much the same thing as we have at MassDOT right now, where we're putting fuel at between 3,200 and 3,600 pounds into a cylinder that's underneath a truck. There's actually 2 cylinders under a truck. A lot of Mass DOT's vehicles have that. And then the bulk, if they were to transport that in bulk, all it is a bunch of those tanks. There's 2 different systems that they use to transport it. It can either be a trailer with 8 of the cylinders on it, longer cylinders, that hold that amount of gas, and then there's another trailer that they put racks of these smaller cylinders in, and then they transport them to somebody else. But that's not for their distribution system. They seem to have a good record with that also.
Thank you. Mr. Zafirovich?
Thank you. I know that for the joint venture, you reached out to Fire Chief Cloutier to talk about the safety of a compressed natural gas station. Have you reached out to the fire chief at all to talk about just laying down these distribution lines at all?
To clarify, when we met with the fire chief, we were not talking about CNG, we were talking about LNG.
Okay.
And that was the other project. But we have not spoken to the chief regarding natural gas distribution system. If you, that's certainly something we can undertake to do if you suggest that would be a good idea.
Absolutely. I think, you know, definitely one of the front lines responders is going to be the Charlton Emergency Response Team. So getting in touch with them to see how they feel, what experiences they have had. I know the fire chief has reached out to other towns, talking about the liquefied natural gas, and he's pretty comfortable with the safety concerns that comes along with those facilities.
I believe when we met a couple of weeks ago, you discussed the fact that part of this process would be training first responders on how to deal with anything, incidents that could come up. Am I correct in that?
We actually have a small staff, 2 people that come out and do training. I've watched it, they have videos. They try to teach the fire departments or the first responders what to look for, what they would see. We also really highly encourage them not to turn any valves until we get there, so that because of the safety aspect of what they might shut off could be worse than what they're addressing. And we talk about all that. And we also have now entered into an agreement with the Northeast Gas Association, that they're creating a packaged program that is going to be available for all the different gas companies, actually from New York all the way through New Jersey into New England, to be able to bring it to the fire departments and have them be able to look at it at their own leisure too. So in addition to being on site personally, we're gonna have these new technology training programs in about a year. So that's a big advantage too.
One thing that I'd like to throw out and ask you to discuss a minute, as I've been hearing talk around town on this, it's not with regards to how the roads are gonna be repaired or what materials are being used or how it's gonna be distributed. Honestly, it has to do with the source of natural gas. People think of natural gas, they think of fracking, and that's a very hotly debated topic right now, so I don't know if you would like to address any of the concerns people might have with dealing with gas coming from that type of a source.
Well, we are planning to connect to the existing Tennessee gas pipeline system, and there are multiple sources of where that gas comes from. It comes from the U.S. Gulf Coast, it comes from Canada, it comes from offshore Nova Scotia. So it comes from a variety of sources, and, you know, we don't know exactly where that gas is coming from specifically. So I think, you know, hydraulic fracking is really beyond what we're looking at. So I think that the sources of gas supply would be from existing sources and future sources of natural gas.
Thank you.
No, they do, just for information, they have specific tariffs that are required. They're basically purchase agreements or quality agreements that have certain quality of the gas that's in that pipeline, and it has to meet those limits. So in any event of where the source is from, the gas has to be of that quality that we can use to distribute to a customer. And there are measurements that are made at the take stations where we purchase the gas that confirm that it's of the quality required. And it's very important that it has that.
So the gas would be tested, if I heard you correctly, where you tap off of the pipeline, the Tennessee gas pipeline?
Well, they have chromatographs along the system. It may not be that point. It could be at Spencer. It could be at Southborough, but it would be close by, yes, definitely.
And as Gary said, the reason for the checking of it is to make sure that the quality is within a certain band so that it can be safely burned at consumers' homes and residences.
Anyone have any other questions or comments? Ms. Cooper?
One more. I'm wondering, is this project compatible with the potential other one? Meaning, could both of them happen in town?
The two projects are totally separate. The two projects are not going to be located in the same areas. The above-ground facilities will be totally distinct, and that there hopefully would be two projects moving forward.
Okay, so a letter of support for this one would not preclude the other one from happening?
Yes.
Ms. Craver, if you,
Yes, one of the things that just came to my mind as we were talking, I'm also, besides the town administrator here, as the town administrator, I'm on the Energy and Environmental Policy Committee for the MMA. And we've had different groups come in and present different issues on energy and the environment. And one of the discussions that we had probably about 6 months ago was the leaks, extensive leaks throughout the state for natural gas. That's not an issue here because this would be a new system at this point. But I'm wondering, do you have some policies? Because I know there was discussion about legislation regarding natural gas as to working with the cities and towns when we start replacing roads. As you know, you want to go into a right-of-way, so we have water, we have sewer, we would have gas now. Do you have any policies on, or talk about how you work with other towns in partnership when they're tearing up a road and doing some other utilities?
There are a couple things I can speak to here. First of all, there are leaks, as you've heard, and there is legal and actually best practice standards for grading them, how fast, or what does it immediately need to be repaired? Is it something that could be scheduled to be repaired? So we do monitor those and keep major records on that, and we always recheck anything that isn't repaired immediately, over the course of time. The state has recognized, and actually the country has recognized, how our infrastructure is aging, and they've created some programs where we can accelerate our replacement programs. And as a matter of fact, this year we're earmarking approximately 10 miles that we're going to replace. And what we do with the towns is we communicate with them on what resurfacing programs they're going to do, what other utility programs or projects they may have in a road that they would actually disturb, so that we could potentially go in there. Sometimes it's on a road that we've already replaced. Sometimes it works perfectly for us. But we will find those as our priorities if it's the type of pipe that would be the older infrastructure that does need to be replaced within the next year or so. And we do work closely with them. And ultimately that road, once it's finished, has new infrastructure in it, plus it's a new road at the same time.
So would you have an objection? I think the legislation, but I'm not sure it got legs because I'm not sure that the municipalities actually wanted it because it could have slowed down construction. But would you object to the town having a bylaw or ordinance stating that when they open a road for water or sewer, that you'll come out and take a look at your piping for leaks so that we could work in partnership with that?
The actual requirement is that if our pipe is exposed, we are to look at it. It's required that we do so. However, if we're on the north side of the street and you're digging on the south side, I would say no.
Understandable.
Anyone else have any questions or comments? Chief?
Just, is this all new lines that they're proposing for the town?
And my understanding is there is no infrastructure in town right now, so
Correct.
they would tap off of the Tennessee pipeline that's going through town and lay all new infrastructure.
So my reason to ask, because tomorrow there's gonna be a working meeting at Mass DOT for the Route 169 resurfacing. So I don't know what the speed of this is, but when that road gets opened up, they're not gonna look very kindly at trying to put any type of other type of piping or whatever, if that's not at working in tandem at the same time. So I don't know what businesses they're targeting or what areas are gonna get service in town. Obviously, geographically, where in town, but if coming out of Southbridge, they're looking at doing anything on 169, I would say that they should work with Mass DOT, the town administrator, and whoever else to look at that. But I don't know what the speed, if that's going to happen in the time frame that it's gonna allow that. But tomorrow's, Lieutenant Lewandowski's gonna be there for my agency on behalf of that project, and I know we discussed that because of the water project as well. But if they're going to put any type of infrastructure at the same time, I would just, if that comes to fruition in a timely manner, I would just say, because once they close that brand new road up, they're not gonna allow any digging, you know that.
Thank you, Chief. I'm not sure if you did. I mean, I think that may be a little early, if you want to address that.
I think if my memory of 169 is our initial target area that we've identified, and that would be subject to,
Sure.
talking to a broader group of people and companies within the town. That is not on that
Okay.
initial map that we provided to you last week, or 2 weeks ago.
I believe that was right, as I remember the map. Do you have any other questions or comments? Don't ask if the board would want to take any action this evening, or
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Zafirovich?
I would propose that we would authorize the town administrator to create a draft, and then at our next meeting, approve a draft
A draft?
of the letter of support.
Okay, thank you. You're offering that as a motion?
Not to approve the letter if it's before it's written, but to authorize the creation of the draft, and then approving that letter at our next meeting.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion on that motion? None appearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carries unanimously.
If I could ask, do you want any language regarding a franchise? Or any contingencies or any discussion? And I could certainly have a conversation with them ahead of time as I'm starting to draft it on what they would like in it.
I think that was the intention of my motion, is to work with Liberty and work on that.
Thank you.
And we will have that, should have it ready for our next meeting.
Yes, sir.
So we may, as soon as a couple of weeks, we'll review that and take action.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for coming
Thank
back
you.
a second time.
Thank you.
We look forward to working with the town.
Thank you very much, likewise.
Do you want these back up there?
They're fine, thank you.
Just a word, Mike, if we can talk before the end of the week, because I am out next week, so I'd like to get that put together for
I
them.
can give you a call tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, good night. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to old business. You ready?
Hi there.
Hi there, you ready?
Yes, sir.
And
Very ready.
unfortunately, we don't have any drums in here to give a drum roll on this. I wish we did, to be honest with you. We have something that the town has been working on very diligently for longer than I've been on this board, and has really come to a head, and that want to take your thunder, Ms. Craver?
No, sir, I think you can rattle that thunder as loud as you can. It's certainly been a long time coming. When I first started here, 10 years ago, and I asked what's the most important thing that the Board of Selectmen wanted worked on, it was public water, and to that end, we've continued to try and progress. So we have another piece to the puzzle. I put together a press release regarding an agreement, so if I can just read the press release, we'll go through, and I think I'll catch all the information that way. Is that okay?
That sounds like a plan.
All right. So this is a press release for a water agreement with ExxonMobil. You know, I do feel like there should be a...
There should be, I know. Cannons and fireworks and,
So the Board of Selectmen and Water Sewer Commission are happy to report that they've reached an agreement estimated to be worth $30 million with ExxonMobil regarding releases at various sites, including the LaMountain gas station. The agreement's new water infrastructure will bring public water to sites contaminated by MTBE, including the Charlton Middle School, Charlton Heritage Elementary School, and Bay Path Regional High School. Masonic Home will also be hooked up to the new water line. Charlton has seen various spills of chemicals into the ground, including salt and petroleum products. Several releases have caused Charlton to evaluate either developing its own drinking water supply system or entering into a partnership with another town or entity to supply water to areas to the town where the aquifer has been contaminated. The releases causing groundwater contamination in Charlton include releases of gasoline at the Massachusetts Turnpike rest areas 5E and 6W, a release of gasoline at the Honey Farms on Worcester Road, a release of gasoline at LaMountain's Exxon on Worcester Road, and releases of petroleum products from the Charlton Highway Department on North Main Street. So the summary of the settlement is, after more than 20 years of continuation, reports and testing, limited treatment approaches, plans and designs, enforcement proceedings, and on-again, off-again negotiations, the town of Charlton has secured agreement in principle that provides the following. First, ExxonMobil will install at its own expense the water line described in Scott Wyborough's letter to DEP dated March 18th, plus Hamrock Road and Dodge Lane, and also would include anything that's required by DEP per their ACO. Per the town of Southbridge's water rules and regulations, ExxonMobil will activate Route 20 section from North Main Street to where Old Worcester Road, Preener Lane intersects with Route 20. And hookups will be addressed as described in number 5 as I get there. One note, some of the other elements and areas of the water line design and construction include, and I know some people are wondering where the water line will go. So the water line will go up Stevens Road, Old Worcester Road from North Main Street to Route 20, Morton Station Road, Mugget Hill Road, water main installation from North Main Street to Morton Station Road, Oxford Road, water main installation from Morton Station Road to Heritage School driveway, Heritage Middle School service connections, Bay Path School service connection with pump station, Old Mugget Hill, North Main Street service line connections and well decommissioning, North Main Street service line connection permit fees. Service connections is outlined in the administrative consent order. Service connection permit fees as outlined in the administrative consent order. Route 169 water main upgrade to a 16-inch diameter from approximately Carpenter Hill Road to Snake Hill Road. Route 169 pump station. H. Putnam Road main installation from Stafford Street to Route 20. Design, permitting, bid prep, project management, construction oversight by an engineer consultant for the water main and service connections will be paid by Exxon. Masonic Home Road water main installation from North Main Street to Masonic Homes. Exxon will hook up Masonic Homes service connection. Masonic Homes, if they're required a pump station, they will provide the pump station. Dewberry Water Modeling, an updated report for technical justification of water line design and water qualities. That has been done, and if there's further needs for that modeling, they will be responsible for that. As well as providing mixers in the J. Hammond and Mass Ave tanks. Number 2, a $7,750,000 cash settlement from ExxonMobil to the town of Charlton. One note, the Board of Selectmen and Water Sewer Commission has voted to use funds to pay off the water debt, cancel all assessed water betterments, and credit those who have already paid. The remaining funds shall support the Water Department, including their operation, capital, expansion, and design, as appropriated by town meeting. There's also a $250,000 cash gift to fund a water superintendent from the actual water line project. This contemplates funding over 2.5 years to get a viable water department up and running. The Water Sewer Commission received a state grant to analyze the financial implications of becoming an independent water department. And this would further their mission, if they so desire to go in that direction. The town of Charlton will provide ExxonMobil a release for 6W, 5 East, Honey Farms, LaMountain. One note is the further contamination and migration is still going to be monitored by DEP, and if necessary, DEP will require ExxonMobil to handle as the responsible party. This release is only for the town, and it does not release ExxonMobil from its requirements. ExxonMobil will connect properties showing detections as agreed to in the order of conditions. ExxonMobil will offer connections to other properties. And this was very important to the Charlton officials, that each property be given opportunity to hook up. So underneath them, contingent upon them providing these hookups, there's some qualifications. So those qualifiers are Charlton will not charge the betterments, which I've already said that the Board of Selectmen and Water Sewer has already voted that they will not be doing. We will not charge betterments regarding whether the home connects to the water or not. And for clarity, properties where ExxonMobil offered a connection during the connection period and they refuse to connect, Charlton will not charge betterments. But likewise, Charlton reserves the right to assess a privilege fee for any change resulting in a new, larger, or additional water service connection after the expiration of the connection period. And again, that connection period is 12 months. ExxonMobil will offer a 12-month connection period, which starts when the line is activated or wetted and the first letter offering the water hookup goes out. ExxonMobil agrees to send quarterly notices during the connection period to residents along the water line to remind them of the deadline to respond to the connection period notice. And this was a requirement and request by DEP. As long as the property owner responds affirmatively within this connection period, they will be connected. Both the Charlton officials and DEP agreed that all residents should be offered connections free of charge if they are in the plume area, whether there is presently contamination at this time or not. It's also worth to note that if a resident signs in the 12th month, and it takes an extra 6 months for ExxonMobil to get around to actually hooking you up, you still will have a free connection. ExxonMobil will work with DEP to identify commercial properties requiring sampling as part of the ExxonMobil upcoming 12-month sampling program. As a note, Charlton officials insisted that commercial properties along the water line be tested and connected if contamination is present. We thank DEP for supporting that requirement. We did find that along the route there were some commercial properties that had not been tested, and they were hoping to exclude those, so we do have them being tested. Excludes any hookups for non-detected commercial properties with DEP approval. And that's very important to note, that DEP approval, as well as undeveloped and unoccupied properties. The 3 schools and Masonic connections will be funded and constructed by ExxonMobil, and ExxonMobil will provide the water line connection stubs for lots that could potentially be developed, built upon, subject to the town of Southbridge's requirements. Charlton will provide a list of properties with undeveloped lots that has a building permit and foundation in place during the connection period so that ExxonMobil can offer that connection. And we really advocated for that to happen. They did not want to put any connections in front of any vacant properties that didn't have a home. We were concerned that a homeowner might be waiting for public water to come, and then they would want to build. So we had them carve out that if the homeowner actually had a building permit and put a foundation in, they knew where they were going, that they could get that free hookup. ExxonMobil will offer to connect the properties is contingent upon potable water being abandoned or disconnected from home. As we know, what we're really trying to do is to stop the continuation of the plume moving, as well as not, bringing it up further. ExxonMobil may use certain wells as monitoring wells at their cost, and they will consult with their LSP and DEP, and will determine whether any exceptions to well abandonment will be granted. Originally, they had wanted to make all of the hookups contingent upon decommissioning the wells. We pushed back and stated that there are some people who may not have contamination at this time, or very, very low levels, that would like to keep their wells for irrigation. So we've at least got so that they have agreed to look at those requests, work with DEP, look at the location and what we're finding in the wells as to whether or not they can keep them. ExxonMobil recognizes that Bay Path High School, Charlton Middle School, and Charlton Heritage School wish to retain their potable well for irrigation. Actually, that was that they may wish to, and I certainly acknowledge, as the negotiating team acknowledged, we're not negotiating for those schools.
Correct.
What our objective was to make sure that they would have the option and an avenue to be able to make the request to keep their wells for irrigation purposes. And we did agree that whether or not to keep those wells open would be in ExxonMobil's sole discretion. We also understand that the schools, if ExxonMobil said no and grouted the wells, that at some later date, the schools could look at whether or not they wanted to install another well. Both parties shall endeavor to get endorsements and approvals quickly and begin the water line. Parties also acknowledge that the terms set forth are contingent upon final management approval of the parties' negotiation of mutually acceptable final settlement agreement between ExxonMobil and the town of Charlton, and on an acceptable ACO from DEP that reclassifies the groundwater aquifer. Note, ExxonMobil has informed the town that their management has approved, so this has received approval, and the Board of Selectmen and Water Sewer Commission has approved the agreement. The background on the settlement. Since the 1980s, the town has been actively searching for a solution to its water needs. In 1996, the town began to study the feasibility of bringing water along Route 169 and Route 20 from Southbridge. Subsequently, a water line was brought from Southbridge to supply the 2 rest areas on the Mass Pike and to service an area in Charlton City, Stafford Street, Route 20, and Brookfield Road area. At the annual town meeting in 1999, the town appointed the sewer commissioners to handle the water issues of the town of Charlton. The town authorized the laying of water pipes and agreed to extend the line along North Main Street and Main Street to service the center of town. The original Charlton water system was designed and installed to provide water from Oxford to the town of Charlton. Water lines were installed in Route 20 and the Charlton City area in 1999 to 2000, including a pump station and a 750,000 gallon water storage tank. Prior to the water system being activated, Mass DEP determined that the transfer of water from Oxford to Charlton would be an interbase water basin transfer that is not allowed by law, and therefore the system was never activated. In 2003, the annual town meeting voted to establish a water study committee to investigate sources of water available within the town limits. The resulting report in 2006 was discouraging, as to find a suitable source, and the town entered into discussions with the town of Southbridge for supplying water. The town also had discussions with Exxon as to the spills on the Mass Pike and La Mountain. The waterline infrastructure remained in place and inactive, and I do remember my first day as town administrator 10 years ago when the chief took me around for a ride to show me the town and pointed out all of the fire hydrants and said, those fire hydrants are dry, there's no water in them, and I went, whoa, what's happening here?
Yep.
So they remained dry for a very long time. Activation of the Charlton system is still ongoing. Currently, to date, Upper Stafford Street area, North Side Road, Route 20 from North Side Road to North Main Street have all been activated. The water infrastructure east of North Side Road and Route 20 to the Oxford Town Line will remain inactive, and the costs have not been included in the calculations of the ExxonMobil settlement. These costs will be considered with activation of that section of the water line at a later time. In 2009, the town of Southbridge agreed to supply the town of Charlton with 100,000 gallons of water to provide to its citizens with known contamination. In 2010, a water line was installed on North Main Street to provide water to multiple properties with natural and petroleum contamination. The two towns continued working on a long-term agreement to bring 500,000 gallons to the town of Charlton. In 2015, the town of Charlton and Southbridge completed an IMA for an intermunicipal agreement for the 500,000 gallons per day. This amount was a prerequisite for building the school loop. Once that agreement was complete, Charlton officials, along with the Department of Environmental Protection, met with Exxon representatives to develop an agreement that would provide water to a suspected migrating gasoline plume. So there were many contributions to this settlement. And if I may take a moment, Mr. Chair?
Please.
The town of Charlton is grateful to many people, boards, and agencies. They include the Board of Selectmen and Water Sewer Commission, and the town's negotiating team consisting of the Board of Selectmen Chairman Rick Swenson, Selectman John McGrath, Water Sewer Vice Chairman Rob Lemansky, and Water Sewer Commissioner Joe Speedwack, and Town Administrator Robin Craver. They in turn wish to thank the Secretary of the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, Matt Beaton, as well as DEP Commissioner Martin Suberg and Deputy Director Mark Baldy for their many years of support as Charlton, Southbridge, and Exxon work together to bring public water to contaminated sites. We recognize the town's past negotiating members, including Sandy Dam, Jack Bacon, John Elliott, Kathleen Walker, and Joe Habler. The state and federal representatives who championed Charlton included Congressman Richard Neal and James McGovern, State Senators Stephen Brewer and Ann Goby, and State Representatives Geraldo Alicia, Peter Durant, and Paul Frost. Charlton staff provided administration and technical support. They included Water Superintendent Steve Wainland, Director of Assessing Deb Ciccarini, Town Accountant Joan Walker, Health Agent James Philbrook, and the Board of Health members Matt Gagner, Nelson Burlingame, and Willie Stevens. We appreciate the support we received from Dudley Charlton Regional School District and Bay Path Regional Technical High School. We thank our community partners, Water Sewers Engineer Chris McClure from McClure Engineering, the town's LSP Gary Magnuson from CMG Engineering, Dewberry Engineering, Whitewater, Mark and Matt Abrams from the Abrams Group, the Southbridge Town Council and the interim town manager Kevin Pecos, as well as DPW Director Heather Blakely, and CEO Tamron Campbell, and the Board of Directors for the Masonic Home. And lastly, but certainly not least, Karen Speedwack for all of the assistance she did in providing information to our residents and being quite the champion. The town of Charlton received excellent legal assistance from Special Environmental Counsel Greg McGregor and his staff at the law firm of McGregor and Lagarde in Boston, and of course our own town council Jim Cosgrove from Worcester. We give a special thanks to Erin Brockovich and the attorney she had contact us for suggestions, William Walsh from the firm of Litz and Luxembourg of New York, New York.
Thank you. I can't, I'm not gonna, after all that, I'm not gonna go on for too long, but I don't think I can overestimate the importance that this has to the town. These spills go back 30 years. The town has been dealing with this for 30 years. The road has been, it's just been an incredible journey, and it really stepped up just about a year ago now when we finally reached the agreement, the IMA with Southbridge to supply the 500,000 gallons a day, because that met, Exxon at that point had said, we're sitting back. When you have water, let us know and we'll talk. And at that point, they sat down, we all sat down, and they realized that we were pretty serious about this. I can't overstate the role that Town Administrator Robin Craver played in this. She was our point person and our spokesperson. ExxonMobil was sending people that do this kind of stuff for a living from all over the country to multiple meetings. These meetings got to the point where sometimes people did get up and leave. People stood up, pounded tables, and threatened to leave. Tempers got very high and a little testy, and Robin went toe-to-toe with them every step of the way and would not back down one bit in doing what was in Charlton's best interest in that. As she mentioned, the four negotiators over the past year for this have been Mr. Lemansky, Mr. Spiewak, Mr. McGrath, and myself. And we all kind of played different roles in this, but they were complementary roles. And I want to thank everyone, because Mr. Lemansky had facts and figures and charts and pictures and graphs of more than you would ever expect anyone to have. I can't begin to think of how many hours he put into this. Mr. Spiewak was one of the ones who was known to pound the table at times, but he was very pragmatic and very direct, and was very good at getting ExxonMobil's attention and making them realize that we were serious about this. Mr. McGrath and myself just kind of sat back and looked good and
Talk when it's supposed to.
talked when we weren't supposed to talk, and that type of thing. I think what played a big part in finally getting this done, when it came out that there had been detections at Bay Path, and Karen Spiewak and some other people organized and were standing up here holding signs. And one thing we all agreed on all along the way was that one thing that ExxonMobil did care about, while we're pretty sure that they really didn't care about the residents of this town, they did care about their brand and their image. And when that started going public, that certainly got their attention. And lastly, I'll say Marty Suberg and particularly Mark Baldy over at DEP. I mean, I'll criticize as quickly as anyone public officials and sometimes the ineffectiveness of state government. We won't go beyond state at this point, but the potential ineffectiveness of state government. I have to say that Mark was always there for us, always there. And it was Mark and Marty really holding ExxonMobil's feet to the fire to get this done, to really make this happen. As long as I've been in town, which is coming up on 30 years, all I've heard about as well, as Robin stated, since when she came, water. We got to take care of water. We got to get water. We got to get water. We got to get water. And we can sit here tonight as a result of a lot of work of a lot of people and say to the residents of this town, we've got water. In very short order, this is going on for 30 years, so relatively short order, within the next couple of years, there shouldn't be anyone in this town who has to bathe their children, shower themselves, cook their food, God forbid, drink contaminated water. It'll be done. It will be done, and I think that's a huge thing, just a huge thing for this town. And one other point I want to make, as Robin was reading through this, we did sign a release with ExxonMobil, whereas the town cannot take action against them. But please, everyone understand, if this plume spreads and there are new hits, the DEP absolutely will hold Exxon responsible, or whoever the responsible party is, in all fairness, whoever the responsible party is, to fix them. The other thing that it does not do, we as a board cannot enter into any agreement that precludes any resident of this town privately going to ExxonMobil for any concerns they have over issues, or any other companies, over issues they would have on their own property. So there's no action that this board can possibly take that would legally preclude residents from pursuing remediation for any problem on their property, and also nothing we can do that would limit DEP's ability to find responsible parties and hold them accountable for future spills. So again, I would like to thank Ms. Craver and everyone who's been involved in doing this. This really is a huge day for the town of Charlton, and I'm very excited and proud to be sitting on this board while we're able to announce this.
Through the chair.
Mr. McGrath.
I'd just like to, we left one group out that was very helpful, and that is the media and social media. And I know Karen did a tremendous job with the social media, but, and to be fair, the Southbridge News, the Telegram and Gazette, and Fox News covered this extensively. When we had people here, squawking about this, they made sure it was out there, and we know that ExxonMobil does not like to see their name in the paper in a negative fashion. And through our media partners, we really appreciate the help that you gave us, and the social media network also. That's all I have to say.
Mr. Lemansky, Mr. Spiewak, either of you have anything you want to add? Done. Said what had to be said when it needed to be said, right?
Speechless.
I know, that may be a first. That may be another red letter day for the town of Charleston. All
Write this down.
Give me a few minutes, I'll come up with something.
right, we're gonna move on then.
Mr. Chair, I would
Ms.
like to
Craver.
say a really heartfelt thank you to Mr. Lemansky, because through the years since he's been on the Water Sewer Commission, I know everybody's been doing, a part, and there's been a lot of people that have had pieces in this. But Mr. Lemansky I've had conversation after conversation. He has, at times, I think, gone to bed thinking about this and woken up thinking about this and how to bring water and get Exxon to do the right thing. And for that, I'm very grateful.
Thank you.
And supported me in a lot of the things that I needed to do, so thank you very much.
We had some good battles.
We did.
I got phone calls after some of those battles.
And so did I.
Yes, exactly. But with all that being said and done, everyone kept their eye on the prize, and we got it, and we got there. So thanks to everyone, and again, this is a great day for the town of Charlton.
I just want to,
I knew he
I
was
should
going
have
to.
well, no, it's just, we have to, I just want to mention this.
Come
is-
to the mic so that they can hear you
is,
at home.
Is what is going to be left here in the town of Charlton from here on out, is when Exxon makes their water improvement, they're gonna approximately put in 18 to 22 million dollars worth of infrastructure. The deal that we struck with Southbridge, which you can call it either way, back in April of last year, that was another close to 25 to 30 million dollars worth of infrastructure that is now solely in the possession of Charlton. Is it good? Is it bad? I'd say most of it's good. It's because now what we have is we have this infrastructure that the way it's working out, that our citizens really didn't have to pay for. The taxpayers of both the state of Massachusetts and Exxon paid for the first two phases, which was coming out of Southbridge, going up to the service areas, and then also Exxon for coming out of Northside Road. So in the town of Charlton did step up for what we needed to do on Route 20. Other than that one small portion, everything else has been funded by somebody else. And we're fortunate that way. And when this new infrastructure gets put in, it'll be approximately 6 miles of new roads. Because they're all gonna be asphalted, curb to curb. Whatever drainage is determined to be faulty, that's gotta be replaced. That's all part of this. And again, great job, Robin, putting all this together. So, that's it.
Thank you, Rob.
Yeah, very good day.
All right, we'll wrap up on that, and we will move forward to our other item under old business, which isn't as much fun to talk about, but our annual town meeting coming up and the budget process. Ms. Craver?
Yes, sir. Just get to where I need to be. Mr. Chair, we're scheduled to post the warrant, the annual town meeting warrant Thursday, April 28th, which means you'll have one meeting after this one. I prepared a draft warrant list with articles for your review. Presently, there are 25 warrant articles, 6 of them are zoning petitions. I've also prepared a draft budget for your review, and although the Commissioner of, actually, I think I'd like to stop there, and would you like to go through the warrant, and then we can go through the budget?
Yeah, actually,
Do it
yes,
that
let's
way?
do that.
Okay, so let me go down to the end of this. Okay, so that begins on page 40. So the articles are election, and the first ones, as you know, generally are housekeeping, election, town reports. I will mention that you do have the report of the Government Study Committee coming down on, in the Article 15. We did take a look to see if it would fit within this scope, and thought because it's something so different than the regular, that we would make it its own warrant article. So litigation, appropriation of funds for unpaid bills, which we have a couple of. Interdepartmental transfers, and I believe I do have, let's see if I have that with me. That's not here. Okay. We have several interdepartmental transfers, and that is going to be, where is that? It'll be at the end of this package, and I do not know, let me find the actual page for it. Because I think it's important to just go through the money articles, and maybe I can just do all of those at one time. And I think it's going to actually be after the budget.
Don't see it.
Don't see it? Nope. All right, I will get that before we finish. You know what? I actually do know where it is. It's sitting in my printer. So we'll go back up to the beginning. So I will take a step out and get the.
Page 66,
Is it on 66?
Article 5 transfers,
Yes.
recreation,
Is it a?
dugout.
Is it a? There it is, right there.
Yep.
What number is that? 66. Yes. Thank you.
Thanks, Cindy.
Like
Thank you
Cindy,
very much.
what she said.
I was punting, thinking it wasn't here. That is one of the issues with having it kind of linear on the computer. So thank you for bearing with me as we get to it. So what I'll do is just go through those money articles, and then we can go back up to the top and go through some of these things. So the Article 5, which will be transfers and appropriations, at this point, and this is a draft and recommendation, certainly waiting your approval. So to the following accounts, and these are transfers. We did have some additional funding in contract obligations. We have not settled our contracts at this time, so I'm able to use some of that funding, as well as we had some savings in gas and diesel because we had an easier year and the cost was down, and we also had some savings from energy and utilities because we were starting to get some net metering credits at this point. So from those accounts, I'm proposing to transfer to the Recreation Commission the complete dugout project, which is for $6,800 to complete their dugout project. As you know, they received a grant and they did a partial of it, and they'd like to finish up the project. And we would transfer that out of energy and utilities. The Recreation Commission's also requesting fields upgrade for their well, a field well upgrade in the amount of $11,700. And I'm proposing that be transferred from gas and diesel. Town Hall Municipal Building Account, lights and cameras for the town common. We've had several employees and residents requesting some additional lighting out there. As you know, in the wintertime, it gets dark at 4:30 and people are outside. So I'm holding $15,000 out of gas and diesel, and Kurt Meskis is taking a look at getting me maybe some more accurate numbers than that, but that is our estimate at this point. Police station, upgrade their lighting to LED. The chief went out and had a study done, and he believes he's gonna be able to save some funding. So we'd like to do those sooner than later rather than waiting until fall. And that's in the amount of $4,048, and those are coming out of the veterans' benefits. We're not cutting the veterans' benefits, but we've had someone move out of town, so we had some additional in that line item. The town collector's salary, sick time buyback, she's retiring in June in the amount of $10,458 from contract obligations. And senior center has asked to have their rug replaced, and that's $10,000, I think we can still pull that out of contract obligations. If any of the unions settle and that money will be needed, we will make some adjustments as appropriate. Article 11 is your capital requests, and at this time, the assessor, and as you know, you've been part of the Millennium Committee, the assessor and the Board of Assessors has asked for some money to start the appraisal for Millennium Power Plant. As you know, we're in the last 5 years of that pilot program. So we have set aside $24,000 out of the Millennium Capital. The Planning Department has asked to do a design plan for complete streets in the amount of, we're holding $10,000 from to transfer from stabilization. This will get us in line to be able to be eligible for further grants for actual construction. And I believe that we're looking at the possibility of constructing some sidewalks. From the stabilization fund, this is general housekeeping that we do out of the Millennium Fund. We raise and appropriate to put into stabilization, and then we take it back out. Unpaid bills, we have 2 unpaid bills. Both of them are for police details. One of them is a sewer expense and one of them is a water expense. I received an email also from Chief Purvier today. I had asked him to let me know what it would be to appropriate funding to close out the police details and write off the bad debt. At this time, he's recommending it's just under $20,000, so I will be adding into the transfers police details in the amount of $20,000 to write off the old debt. I need to confirm with DOR to make sure that we're using the correct process for that. But that doesn't mean that it'll go away. The chief will still be able to, if it's possible to collect them, he still would be able to collect it, and it would go to the general fund versus the police detail account. Do you have any questions on those money articles? Is there anything that you were, and again, as always, we are watching the department budgets for any budgets that may be in deficit or in trouble. At this time, we don't have any, which is very happy to report. Our staff is excellent at maintaining their budgets. So we're very pleased that we can do some of the small capital now and some of the things that we need to get done right away. Questions, thoughts, benchmarks? Okay, so then we will go back up to 40. So I've gone through the unpaid bills, the interdepartmental transfers. Article 6 will be town budget, and that I'll go over the draft town budget in a moment once we finish these articles, and that's still a moving target at this point. Article 7 is your water department budget, and Article 8 is the sewer department budget. I have worked with those with their administrator, and we have a balanced budget at this time, and I will have that for your review after. Article 9 is the PEG access and cable related fund acceptance and balance. What the legislation did was, in reaction, well, let me back up. In reaction to comments at town meeting and residents asking for a more transparent appropriation of monies coming from cable, we added it to our budget, and it became one of the line items. The legislation saw that cities and towns were doing it all different kinds of ways, accounting for that, and wanted to have a more unified way. So they've given cities and towns the ability to do a couple of things. One, you can do it through an enterprise fund such as the water sewer is, or you can use a revenues account on an acceptance. So we're recommending an acceptance of Chapter 44, Section 53F and a half, which will establish a special revenue fund known as the PEG Access and Cable-Related Fund to reserve cable franchise fees and other cable-related revenues for appropriation to support PEG access services and oversight and renewal of the cable franchise agreement. The fund to begin operation for the fiscal year of 2017, which begins on July 1st, 2016, and to further vote to transfer from available funds and appropriate to the capital department budget such as sums. And actually, at this point, I'm reading the warrant article. Sums of money as may be necessary, together with the revenue from the cable department operations to defray the expense of cable department for the fiscal year to July 1st, 2016, or take any other action. So in the motion, we will actually have a budget the same way that we do the water and sewer budgets.
I can't let this go by.
Yes, sir.
What is half of F?
The lower or the top?
The F and a half, I'm not quite sure what half of F is.
F.5?
F.5?
Actually, it's 53F and 3/4.
3/4, oh, well. I guess once you figure out what half is, getting to 3/4 is pretty easy.
Joe, you're down there all the time. Where do they come up with this?
Where do they come up with F and a half?
Article 10 is to transfer funds to and from stabilization fund. We talked about that. Article 11 is the capital items. We've talked about that. Article 12 is the cemetery perpetual care, and the town will be asked to vote $6,290 as trust funds to be used for perpetual care for the cemeteries. Article 13 is reauthorization of the revolving funds. There are no changes there.
Also a section 53E and a half.
E and a half.
Article 14 is the classification plan update. It was submitted to me by the chairman of the Personnel Board. They've made some adjustments to the classification plan. They are upgrading the cemetery superintendent from an N6 to an N7, and they're recommending to upgrade the head of library youth services director, assistant director from an N5 to an N6. Those will be important to know as we move forward with the budget because those salaries have been adjusted as well. Article 15 is the Government Study Committee, and that will be to hear their recommendations and the results of their study. Article 16, deed in lieu of foreclosure. If you remember, I'd asked for a placeholder for the treasurer. He was looking at one property. In substitute, he's asked to put this on. This is a parcel that could be taken by, for non-taxes. The owner is wanting just to give it to us, and then that saves us some significant costs. Article 17, the next three articles are submitted by the Planning Board. Article 17 is a zoning bylaw amendment, commercial storage facility. There's a change there. Article 18 is a zoning bylaw amendment to the village district zone change, and I believe that they are expanding that district. Article 19 is a zoning bylaw amendment regarding use regulations of livestock change. I believe that is the chicken changes. And then you have from Article 20 to 25, there are 5 petitions. 4 of them were submitted by Mr. Lemansky, and one of them has a defect. I've contacted the petitioner, and I believe that they will have enough time to cure that defect, and we'll have that on. So, is there any questions?
Any questions from the board?
So I will have all of the final language ready for you to vote to approve and sign at your next
Great.
meeting, and we will post 2 days later. So now, here we go with the budget, but I'm actually going to go back up to the beginning and finish my memo to you. So. So, I've also prepared a draft budget for your review, and although the Commissioner of Revenue, Mark Newelly, announced in January that the Massachusetts economy has moderate growth and the economy is improved, we've been slow to experience that increase in Charlton's budget. Charlton has seen some modest growth as well as making conservative appropriations over the last several years. We are in a position to increase the general budget to meet some long-desired needs, and we must plan for future growth and be ready to meet the needs of the community. I'm encouraged that we maintain services and modestly increase some budgets that were in danger of being unable to function, but I am hesitant to state that we are in an economic growth period. This year, local aid, as proposed by the governor, will be increased by 4.3%, which is a total of $57,000. The current budget numbers are based on the governor's local aid. I did hear today at the State House that the House is actually looking, the Speaker of the House has actually said that he's going to be recommending 3%, which would drop that number down even further. At this time, the revenue forecast is $25,122,372, and the total requested by departments is $26,491,344, which leaves a $1,368,972 deficit. This deficit includes a Dudley Charlton Regional School District request increase of 13% in its operating assessment and a 1.1 decrease in transportation. The budget being considered tonight is funded at $25,341,060, which is a $218,688 deficit. And we will continue to revise as we know more, especially any adjustments in local aid. The House and Senate have not released their numbers as of yet. The draft adjusted budgets meet contractual increases and provide some personnel increases. For instance, the classification, wage, and plan study made recommendations to increase staff that were being underpaid. Those recommendations are included in this budget. Some departments need additional staff and/or hours, and those have been recommended based on need. At this time, the total Dudley Charlton budget, which includes operating, transportation, and capital, is funded at $11,650,453, which is a $256,981, which is a 2.3% over last year's budget. In the past years, the financial principles we've used to prepare this draft budget is the same for FY17, which include that current revenues must be generally sufficient to support current expenditures. Debt is not to be used to fund current operating expenditures. Strong reserves are to be maintained. Adequate contingency funds are to be maintained. Sufficient maintenance and replacement dollars are included to ensure capital facilities and equipment are properly maintained, and the budget strives to maintain the quality of services currently provided. The following summary provides an overview of the revenue and expense projections and recommendations for FY14, as well as an update for FY16 financial situation. I think it is good to note some of the reductions that you have made over the last couple of years. The FY16 balanced budget for the general fund was funded in the amount of $24,500,572 at the annual town meeting, May 18, 2015. Of which $400,000 was appropriated from the stabilization fund. The board and finance committee agreed on the following cuts in the FY16 budget to balance the budget. FY16 reductions from FY15 was finance committee's reserve fund was reduced $25,000. General insurance was reduced $20,000. Health insurance $78,000. Town council was reduced $6,000. Town hall custodian from 40 to 30 hours, reduced $7,000. Reduced police salaries, the fourth dispatcher, $54,000. Entered into the Veterans District, eliminating full-time veterans agent. These compounded the cuts were made, and I'm not gonna go through those, but you have them there, from 14 and 15. The town approved several increases to its FY16 budget over FY15 budget, including And the major increases this year were water department debt was added in the amount of $161,506. If you remember, we had a water stabilization fund that we were funding that water debt from.
Yep.
Worcester County Retirement added $175,000. Fire Department union contract increase was $32,000. Total education increase $368,000, and I am rounding up on the thousands. Snow and ice, which every city and town felt that pinch from last year's extreme winter conditions. Our snow and ice was $230,000 over budget. The assessors was $1,000 increase in software. Collector was $500 in postage. Municipal utilities, we added $30,000. Unemployment was $5,000. Overlay $2,000, and treasurer's banking was $1,200. The FY17 revenue and expenditure forecast. The budget forms were sent out and have been returned by most departments. Instructions requested that any increases in the department budgets other than the negotiated personnel increases would be needed to justify through documentation and not to be over 2.5%. The Finance Committee completed their department budget hearings on March 30th, and the kickoff meeting with the school district was March 31st. At that meeting, the school stated that they were still adjusting the budget, and our state representative stated that local aid will not change significantly from the governor's numbers. A little up, a little down.
And just to interject, in 2 weeks, I know the House will be debating their budget, so possibly within 10 or so days, maybe 10 to 14 days, we'll actually have numbers from the House budget.
Well, the good thing is when we have to post the warrant, we will not still have to have the budget done. And quite often, we're still adjusting this budget right up until a day,
Yeah.
couple days before.
Yeah, well, usually
Couple of
they-
days before?
Yeah.
Days before?
That is true. I can tell you that there are some towns that are actually pushing their town meeting off until June. This town has not done that, and you've been conservative and moved forward, and I think that that's been part of the success that we've had financially. So the town continues to struggle mostly because of uncertain new growth and local receipts, lingering effects of the economic recession, increasing the use of stabilization funds for the operating budget, near-level funding from the state, and substantial increases in Charlton Schools assessments. The budget presented is a continued reflection of these fiscal conditions. First, let's look at the revenue forecast for FY17. You will see, and that's in attachment A, you will see based on the information we have presently, an amount of $25,122,372 is available for appropriation without the use of stabilization funds. This includes an estimated FY15 snow and ice deficit of $150,000 charge against the revenue. There are several assumptions that make it difficult for the finance team to forecast a higher amount. So regarding new taxes, Prop 2.5 has provided new revenues each year, including $419,114 in 2016. Prop 2.5 increase for FY17 is estimated at $438,592. New growth revenues. The highest year's new growth was $689,789 in 2007, and the lowest was in 2012 at $160,160. That year, in 2012, new growth was estimated at the annual town meeting as $260,000, but actually came in as $160,000, requiring a reduction in the budget. In FY15, new growth was estimated at $220,000 for town meeting, but came in at $261,000, and FY16 came in at $457,000, mostly due to a surge in new motor vehicle purchases. The assessor's office is recommending $220,000 amount again for FY17, and I have attached the town planner, Alan Gordon's projections for new projects for your review. Deborah Ciccarini, Director of Assessing, is cautious and reports it is her expert opinion from the Board of Assessors and as Director of Assessing to continue to use a very conservative estimate on new growth for budget purposes. As we have stated in previous years, until assumptions of new construction actually become permitted and the occupancy is imminent, we should only remain cautiously optimistic on the pipeline projects detailed in the town planner's outline for FY '17 upon completion of July 1st, 2016. FY '17 growth estimate is still down as of March 16th. The updated potential estimate of value for new growth anticipated completion by July 1st is as follows. The estimated residential, new homes and additions, total estimate is $9 million. Estimated data collection due to the cyclical inspections, estimated $465,000. The estimated commercial, residential new growth permitted and due to be completed by July 1st. That total estimate is $800,000 for the Barkwood Inn addition, $400,000 for the Brookfield Road storage units, there's 4 new buildings, and $1,500,000 for solar farm, National Grid on Snake Hill Road. Estimated personal property, total estimate is $625,000. The new estimate in new value is $12,790,000, which comes out for FY '17 in new tax dollars, $176,000. You will find attached a report from the building commissioner regarding permits issued and expected. Mr. Meskis estimates 582 building permits for FY '17, only increasing his estimate 2 more from FY '15. As you know, in '16, we're still in the process. So generally, we anticipate building fees to remain the same. Stabilization funds for operating budget. The general stabilization is a funding source that many towns use when cuts seem unbearable, but it only holds off the inevitable, either cut expenses or expand revenues. Operating budgets generally should be funded with stable, reoccurring sources. Historically, the town has utilized the general stabilization funds to supplement the operating budget in a planned and thoughtful manner to move the town and its services through what had been coined the greatest recession and slow recovery over the past several years. FY '14 was an exception as town meeting opened the finance committee's recommended balanced budget and added additional monies for the school and police, increasing the recommended amount from $382,000 to $596,000. That was the highest use of stabilization funds used to supplement the operating budget in known history of the town of Charlton. As you know, in an effect to maintain funding for these increases, an override in the amount of $800,000 was proposed to the town and rejected. FY '15 and '16 were years of budget cuts to reduce the reliance on voted one-time revenues. This budget will attempt to eliminate the use of all stabilization monies to supplement the operating. And then you have a chart on stabilization usage. The Water Sewer Commission has been paying its debt from the Water Stabilization Fund, which was depleted in FY '16, and the water debt is again paid from the general fund. Although water betterments have been assessed at 50% without the rest of the planned new infrastructure being built and activated, we will pay debt out of the general fund. And I get to stop right here and say, this is old news because now our settlement will be able to
That's
pay
right.
off our debt.
Yep.
And we will be able to reduce the budget from the amount that we were holding in there. So there will be an adjustment if the money comes in time. If it does not, we will continue to appropriate it in the budget and then make the adjustments later. I want to especially thank Deb Ciccarini, Keith Arsenault, and Lucia Blanchette for their hard work and diligence on researching, compiling the data for your review, as well as their dedication to sound financial management practices. I also want to thank our retired town accountant, Joan Walker. Just having her missing from this just doesn't seem quite right yet. Also, there's a thank you to Alan Gordon and Kurt Meskis for their contributions to this report regarding the new growth estimates through analysis of Charlton's commercial and residential markets. You do have the budget there
Oh,
for
yeah.
your review.
Any questions for the town administrator?
If you
I
would like,
think, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
if you would like, I can go through some of the highlights of the budget changes, or,
What are the wishes of the board?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Zafirovich?
I assume that, this will be posted online, I think is a really good memo. I think it should be, is it gonna be on the, available on the town website?
I would be glad to put it there.
So
I just,
I hesitate with putting the budget there for many, many reasons, but
Yeah.
mainly because once these numbers come out and they get posted, people start to think that they are, and they change. I can tell you from now, I've probably already made some changes.
I think one thing we have to be careful of and very open and honest about is sometimes I think there's a perception is that we're out of the tunnel with regards to financial concerns. And I think that's far from the case. I mean, I think we are moving towards the end of the tunnel very slowly. So I think, as I've looked over this budget, I think it's pretty conservative, which I appreciate, and I think we just, the line that my parents always used to say is we can't go out there spending money like we have it. Because we really don't. So we've got to be very cautious and very careful with every penny, because we have still got a very long way to go.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, the FinCom has not finalized any of their things here, correct?
No, sir, I did present a budget, and this has actually changed since then. I waited until after all the departments had an opportunity to present to the finance committee, and I gave them the unbalanced budget, which we will start working on now. They were generally in approval of some of the changes. So let me highlight some of the changes for the people at home so we can be a little transparent. How's that? Or a lot
I
transparent.
was just gonna say, it will be as transparent as the information we
There you,
And just know
exactly.
it'll change tomorrow.
Exactly.
Okay. So, I will highlight some of the, increases. So, I talked about the classification plan and the changes for, staff who are, for what they do, and they did a job inventory as to what their duties were and what they were paid. And unfortunately, we're really good negotiators, so the administrative assistant in our office was hired at a very low rate. And she's taken on additional duties, such as she's now the full-time veterans clerk, as well as has been very successful with grant writing and taking care of all of the utilities. So she's increased some of the things that she does. And I think that that's reflected in the classification plan's suggestion to increase her salary. I have done that. I have done the increases exactly the way the objective consultant had recommended. So I just want to say, because this first one is in our office, I didn't have anything to do with this. This is straight from the classification plan. Contract obligations, I've increased that because we still have 3 contracts that are outstanding. We also have some veterans training, some other training. We have a new town accountant. He'll need some additional training too. So I've changed the contract obligations and put HR/ so that we have traditionally used this for other HR, not just union contracts. So it seems to be more transparent if we make it an HR type line item. Finance committee, I've increased that to, from 98,000 to 125,000. Again, we will be working with these numbers to balance the budget, and that will be one of the numbers we will look at making some adjustments to.
So with you having cut your teeth on ExxonMobil, we can be confident that contract obligations, that number will go down, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
What does that mean?
He just
I always say-
Philadelphia lawyer.
I just say yes, sir. Town accountant, there is a reduction there because we do have a new town accountant who's just starting out. And we can look at his salary later as he gets acclimated to the town. He is a seasoned town accountant from another area, so we didn't reduce that budget too much. The Gadsby 34 on line 41, I believe it is an increase in the contract. Board of Assessors. One of the other things you'll notice as we go through, and I won't point out every one of these, but we tried to, inflation has happened. We have cut the departmental expense budgets consistently. And all I've done is, for some of these, is just round up, so you'll notice some of them might have $36 more. So they're going from $497 to $500. So I did do some of that. It's small, but I think it will be appreciated as we go through. The assessors had, in line 51, the assessors had requested property reval expense, and they were planning on banking that over a couple of years. What we've decided to do, which makes much better sense, is to, instead of starting to spike that budget, is to just appropriate the money from the transfer. So that's where you see the $24,000 for the appraisal.
Why under Board of Assessors, why such a difference in the appraisal and attorney services? What was the, I mean, they proposed, the jump was proposed from 6860 to 13.6. I'm just wondering.
Which line item?
I'm sorry, 54.
Was that for Millennium
appraisal.
also?
And we'll put Millennium in the capital.
Okay.
Yes. They were requesting $6,250 for Millennium appraisal, and we'll fund that.
Good.
So, the next would be the treasurer. There's no significant changes there. I think he did ask for additional funding, one of them. Tax collector. The tax collector, we've added $15,000 for department assistant wages. We have a plan. The tax collector, as you know, is retiring in June. I will be recommending that after consultation with our town collector on the abilities of our assistant town collector, I will be recommending that she move up and be promoted to town collector. I think that's important in the town. I think it's important for our staff to know that they have upward mobility. Virginia has worked years here, so I'm looking forward to seeing her take the next step. Given that, once Lucia leaves, Virginia would be in the department by herself. We need to replace someone. So what I'm proposing, and Finance Committee agreed, was to add monies in there for a short period of a part-time person until we can kind of get up and going. I'm going to be putting that, they also gave me $10,000 in a reserve, from the reserve fund for this year. We also have one of our employees who is taking extended bereavement leave in the treasurer's office. So what I'm proposing is to hire someone full-time. They will spend half the time in the collector's office, learning under Lucia and Virginia for the time that Lucia is still here. And she or he will spend half of their time in the assessors, in the treasurer's office, giving Keith some assistance. Hopefully, when Lucia leaves by June, our other employee should be back, and then the employee will be able to step into the assistant collector position. I know that's really confusing to try and walk through, but
I'm gonna try to
hopefully
summarize this as I understand it. So line 72 will be the salary for the new collector. Line 73 will be the salary for a new hire as an assistant. And line 74 would be the temporary, or the person that's gonna go between collecting and treasurer. Do I understand that correctly?
that is correct.
Thank you.
And if we do not use all of that, it will be adjusted and reduced in the next budget. So again, this is, we'll know better in another month on
Yep.
what we're doing. Under the town clerk, you'll see an increase of $8,000 under election and registration, as this is a presidential year. She has an additional election. Conservation is, for the most part, the expense line items are pretty much the same. The Finance Committee took a vote and added $15,000 in for a department assistant. As you know, the conservation agent has taken on many hats, does quite a bit, and he's at the point now where he really does need some administrative assistance in there. Planning board, again, the union people are level funded, but we are anticipating some adjustments there within the contract. Board of Appeals,
Back to planning director board. What's going on with Alan's salary, or the planning director's salary? It looks here as though they've requested 91,371, and we put 82,480. Is that still the 4 hours that we're talking about?
yes it is.
My personal opinion on this is we've gone far enough with this. And we need to, they're busy, they followed all the things that we've asked when they've come before the finance committee in stating their case, and they need those 4 hours back. So I think if we're putting assistance in the Conservation Commission, I think we need to take care of fixing the problem that we have at the planning board, and that's my opinion.
I'm gonna offer a counterpoint to that, which I'm sure you expected. We had a meeting. It was myself, Ms. Craver, Finance Committee Chairman, and EDC Chairman. And EDC Chairman approached us about that very same thing. He asked for the meeting, and that was the purpose of the meeting, to discuss putting that back. Both the Finance Committee Chairman and myself talked about discussed the fact that we weren't sure that we'd have the votes of the boards to do that. So what we did is we called the planning board, chairman of the planning board, asked him to come into the meeting with us, and on another day, we set another meeting. He came in and we talked about it. And we said what would be very helpful to us in justifying the increase back to our boards would be having an outline of what the town planner is doing. How he's spending his time, what's going on, and all of that kind of stuff. We got a letter back from the planning board chairman flatly refusing to do that.
And I'll offer a counterpoint to that.
That's fine.
What other department have we asked to do that? What other department have we asked a department head to do that? What other department have we taken a staff member that works for another elected board and reduced their hours?
Well, not that works for another board, but we reduced the treasurer's hours.
What other department that works for another board have we reduced their staff as hours? And then, when they've requested to have the hours back, we haven't done it. None.
I don't have one.
I know.
I don't
And
have
that's my answer to the whole thing. And I will say, I'm being parochial about this because I was with the planning board for a long, long time, and I know what work goes on down there. So I am being parochial about this, but that is my statement.
And that's fine. And my final statement would be, we asked for something detailing that, and we were told we weren't gonna get it.
And the reason is because they feel we singled them out. So,
Mr. Chair, just to make a counterpoint, it's also a very unique position that it's balanced between the reports to appointing authorities.
I agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. I mean, this is one of those things I think we'll respectfully agree to disagree a little bit. And that's
Absolutely.
fine, and that's fine.
Board of Appeals, Department Assistant wages is 4,000. It was 5,000 when we were trying to adjust the budget. We reduced that, and the Finance Committee had promised the Board of Appeals that if they needed additional monies, that they would get it. That has been restored because they do have a couple of large projects, which I think they ended up coming back this year for a reserve fund transfer. Economic Development has stayed the same. Municipal offices, those are 1%. You'll see with the non-union is a 1% increase. We have a bylaw that states that the non-union personnel will receive the average of all of the contracts that are settled at the time of town meeting. The only contract we have settled at this point is the highway, and they are at 1% this year. If either the police, fire, or clerical settle before town meeting, we will adjust all of the non-union if there is a difference. Technology and computer and licensed software. We have some changes that we need to do to the system. The way Microsoft bills, we now have an additional $10,000 in software. You do have the backup documentation from Kurt Meskis regarding the technology, and I would recommend that if you get some time to sit down and go through some of the backup documentation. We do have a booklet with all the backup documentation on your in your read folder desk. So that is not adding anything. That is for the most part, it's catching up. These licensed softwares increases are catching up to us. He has recommended, and the Finance Committee has seemed agreeable. We do need to change one of the lines that we have coming in for redundancy to make sure that we don't lose power, especially the internet. So we're going to a straight, I think it's a fiber connection.
Is that 152?
Yes, sir. That's a new piece. Cable TV, as you notice, it's been zeroed out, and it will be in its own warrant article. Reports is level funded. Insurance, we had an increase in general insurance. I'm holding 2% at this point. Group health insurance has a 6.6% increase. And I will be looking again, as we're balancing the budget, I will be looking at those line items again. In Medicare, we have a $3,000 increase. And unemployment, we are level funding. Worcester County Retirement, there's an 8.9% increase, which relates to $88,000 increase. We're doing kind of a makeup again, as you know, for the unfunded pension liability. Union salaries, we've had a fifth employee, so that's gone from $800 to $1,000. Municipal gas, I'm level funding that at this point. There's no guarantee that the costs will stay low, so I'm hesitant to make any adjustments in that. Public safety, I've increased for patrol and part-time clerical. There's software increases and an increase in the station utilities and maintenance of $506. Training and special services, I've added $2,400. Fire, the chief provided in his budget stating that asking for 4 additional staff firefighters, and he had stated it in his original budget that he would be able to do that for $60,000. He has now notified me that there was a cell in his calculation that was corrupt and missed, and the actual amount is $125,000. Originally in this budget, when I presented it to the Finance Committee, I had the 4 additional officers in, and then contemplated taking them out when I heard at the price. At this point, we are in negotiations. I'm having conversations with the union as to how important is it to get more staff. As you know, you've been listening to the fire department over the last several years talk about how there's an inexorbitant amount of overtime, that there is lost ambulance runs. Although they have 2 ambulances sitting there, they're unable to man 2 ambulances. The reason that I'm bringing forward to ask for your consideration at this point for additional is it appears that there will be an increase, but I think that it'll be much lessened for 2 reasons. One, he believes that he'll be able to reduce his overtime by 50%, which will make up some of that, but also if they're able to run on 4 shifts, a second ambulance. I'm looking at this as growth, almost the municipal economic development growth. So I think that we may be surprised in the amount of traffic we get between Masonic Home as well as Harrington, and other towns who are losing their ambulances or, not running as much. I think we'll be able to pick up some of that money and provide some additional funding for the town.
I've believed for a few years that we've been cutting off our nose to spite our face when it comes to fire department staffing. So I'm kind of anxious to see this and see if in fact it does
Yeah.
work out the way that at least some of us think it will.
Well, if you look at the numbers, which we have looked at
Yeah.
with the chief, I agree.
The other thing is if we add the 4 officers, we'll be able to get the fire prevention officer back out there. And he actually does bring in quite a bit of revenue and fees, and when he's not able to be out there and doing the inspections, then we're not able to get the fees. So there's additional monies there. I have not included a deputy chief, which is what he did request, so that is not in this budget.
Is the fire inspector salary included in the salary line item?
If they have 4 additional officers, I believe that their fire prevention officer would be able to get back on days, is my understanding.
Okay.
So that department's total increase would be $139,000. Building department, no significant changes there. Inspector of Animals, as you know, there was a bit of a shakeup in the Board of Health office. We've negotiated that the animal control officer will merge their duties with the animal inspection duties. So this has been zeroed out and those monies have been shifted over to the animal control officer, which is the next department.
Mr. Chair,
Mrs. Averovich?
can we go back to fire really quick? The $1.43 million for salaries, does that include a 50% reduction for overtime?
Yes, it does.
Thank you.
Animal control officer, so you had approved, as well as the finance committee had approved, an additional $10,000. Half of that was the stipend, and there is an additional $6,000 for the animal control officer to take on the animal inspector duties. My understanding is she's been very busy since she's assumed those duties.
I'm sure, I don't doubt that at all.
Tree warden is level funded. Well, actually, we brought him back up to the 10,000, which added $355. I did see an email come in. I have not had an opportunity to take a look at it yet, but I did notice that he is making a request, but I don't know what that is yet.
Just a quick question, not really budget related, but there were requirements for the tree warden. Do we know if the tree warden is pursuing those, to meet those requirements as far as qualifications?
I do not know. I can get that
be
information
curious.
for
I
you.
know
if
the
it
tree
was.
warden, and I can't answer that.
I can ask
Exactly, exactly.
Knowing the tree warden, he's pretty good at what he did.
I don't doubt that, but if I
I
remember
have
when he
no
was
clue.
appointed, he didn't have the qualifications for the office.
Yeah.
And he was going to pursue them. I would just like to make sure that that's happening.
Yes, sir. Education. Bay Path has reduced, the transportation $28,000, and they've increased their operating, for $16,000, and the capital, was increased $3,500, for a total reduction overall of $8,387.
I love that school.
That's why I went there.
Dudley Charlton,
There you go.
as you know, requested 1.3 million. They're still in negotiations. The town administrator in Dudley and I will be meeting with the superintendent next, either later this week or next week. And then there'll be the leaders' breakfast where we'll have further information. They had also asked about doing an override. I contacted them today, and they've asked to kind of hold off on that. As you know, you had done a placeholder, so I'm still waiting to hear from them whether or not they want to pursue that.
Just an FYI, the city of Worcester met with their legislative group, the school committee, Worcester School Committee, and they received the same exact, if not more dire, consequences. And when they asked their two senators and their state reps if there's any way to put in more money right now, they were told that that should have been done in January for a request.
My understanding is that Dudley Charlton may be looking at some other type of capital building request, and I think they're sensitive to an override asking for regular capital when they may have some building issues, so.
My thought on an override would be next year, anyway, not this year.
Absolutely.
Not
Debt
enough time.
exclusion.
Before for debt exclusion for,
Any-
but there was talk of an override, and I think trying to hold in a place for that for May is,
So, they will let us know in the next couple of days. The out-of-district tuition, we have 3 students out of district, 2 at Norfolk Aggie and 1 at Assabet.
you know what year they're in at Norfolk Aggie?
I think they're both sophomores. The out-of-district transportation, so we've reduced this. We were caring for 4 students and 1 dropped out last year. So, we are able to reduce the budget, and I will continue to keep an eye on that. Yes, sir?
Wasn't there some talk of having them, weren't they trying to make something local for the agricultural students?
There was a study of APATH for agriculture,
That's what it was.
yes.
Yeah,
I have
and
not
there
heard
was
the
funding.
results of that.
Yeah, there was funding for it. I think the analysis is still being
Okay,
conducted.
all right, thank you. In my addled mind, there was something floating around in there.
And I think part of that has been because the cities and towns that go to Bay Path have significant students. I know Spencer does, Dudley does, we do. Highway Department, pretty much level funded. Then when you get down to the reconstruct, repair, and paving roads, the highway superintendent has been asking, I think for the last 5 years or so, for that line item to be restored. There is a great need to do some work on private roads. So right now, what we're carrying is restoring that budget number back from 42,000 to 75,000. Street lighting and ice removal is level funded. Cemetery department.
We back up to snow and ice
Absolutely.
removal. How'd we do this year?
Right now, I'm carrying 150,000 as over. I think we're probably around 100. We may be able to make some adjustments on that.
Good.
But that's depending on whether or not all the bills have come in
Yep.
and whether or not we have any other significant storms.
Don't say that.
Bite your
we've-
tongue.
I need to make sure all the bills
I
are in
understand,
before
I
I
understand.
make any adjustments with that. Cemetery Commission, as you saw in the Personnel Board's warrant article, there's an adjustment there. He was put into another category, and there's a $7,800 increase for him.
And that's in line with the review that was done?
Yes, sir. by the Personnel Board. That was not a recommendation of the
Yep.
classification survey, that was from the Personnel Board. They have also been requesting to increase their temporary personnel's hourly salary, because they have been at I believe at $10, and the highway was at $12, so this has been adjusted to go to $12. Although I'm not sure they know, I think highway is going to 13. Don't tell. Board of Health has been adjusted. There's been an overhaul in the Board of Health department. What's happened is that they have generally used consultants, outside consultants for much of their inspections. This year, they made an in-house real health agent, has provided 10 hours of office time for Jim Philbrook. And he is also doing the inspections that he was doing, the restaurant inspections and other inspections. So you'll notice that a couple of those lines have been zeroed out, the health agent expense, the inspection expense, and and that has been moved up to a new salary for the health agent and revised position. This has been a tremendous change in the department. They have so much going on between the contamination, certainly with Exxon, but also with Casella and other issues. And they are functioning very, very well right now. And I would say that is in large part due to Jim Philbrook and having the hours that he can put into that office.
And thank you to the town administrator for assisting them.
Yes.
My pleasure.
They're doing a great job.
They really are, and they've just gotten a grant. Council on Aging is pretty much the same. Veterans Agent, we've reduced the veterans' benefits by $11,000 because we've had someone move out of district. Again, no one will ever go without veterans' benefits. We have several safeguards to make sure that that doesn't happen, such as the reserve fund and special town meeting if we need to appropriate something. So we'll be able to adjust that as we go along. The American Legion lease is level funded. Library, if you remember last year, the cable committee left out of the building. They were reduced $4,000. And what we're proposing at this point is just to level fund them back to the year before. Recreation Department is no change, except for the field maintenance contract, which increases $1,300. The Finance Committee asked to increase the Old Home Day expense back to $500. And then you will notice that we have some varying degrees of reductions and increases regarding our long-term debt and interest.
Good job.
Thank you, sir. We have great staff, excellent department heads who are working very hard to stay within the budget. They try to find cost savings when they can. It's a pleasure to work with everyone.
Now, if we can just find $220,000 somewhere.
Might find it in line 388.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, now, has this draft gone to FinCom yet?
It did with probably some different changes.
Yeah,
Such
okay.
as adjusting the 4 firefighters.
Yeah.
Some things like that.
Okay. Any questions, comments for the town administrator on the budget?
Thank you.
Other than thank you for your work in putting this together.
This is a very comprehensive, it lists a lot of the everything from the upcoming town meeting. It's very helpful.
Well, I think it's helpful to do this in a regular meeting and go through the details so that people at home can see what we're doing and thinking. And if people at home have any questions, my door is always open. I'm glad to sit with them on the budget or any warrant articles. We will also need to schedule, Mr. Chair, an opportunity for you to sit with Drew and do
Yes.
the warrant articles.
Yeah. One of the highlights of my year. One thing I would ask, I know Mrs. Zafirovich asked about getting this on the website. If we do, I would like to put on there in big, bold, capital letters that this is a draft budget and,
It's been, the finance committee also have been resistant to doing that, and I don't recommend putting the full budget. If people would
Okay.
like to come in, I would be glad to sit with them and go through it, but I don't recommend putting this draft up there at this time.
I meant, also meant like most
The
of.
budget message,
Yeah, the messages, all the
message will be fine.
details, the
The message.
histories, that I think is important
That would
to
be
be
fine.
accessible.
Yeah,
That would be
I
fine.
believe last year we did a stellar job in not panicking anybody.
Yeah.
And that really, looking at this budget, there's no reason for anybody to panic.
And if you're interested in the budgeting process, please tune in to a regular finance committee meeting.
There you go.
And
Or attend in person.
Or attend in person.
attend in person even better. I would also like to thank and recognize all the department heads. Everyone put their budgets together responsibly and taking into consideration that we still have a long way to go as a town. And I think as a board, we can all say we appreciate their restraint and their commitment to do the best they can in tight times. Very good.
thank you, sir.
Do we have any committee reports or policy reviews to go over this evening? Then we will jump to the town administrator's report. Chief, you going? Thank you, Chief. Good night.
Hey, Chief.
Good job, though, Rob.
Thank you, sir.
She,
A lot of tenacity
there was.
on that water project. It's gonna make a big difference for the town, not only quality of life, but also, with businesses coming back, to the table, looking at Charlton, because you'll have water. It'll make a huge difference. Won't happen tomorrow, but you can see the light. And I know for the hours that when I go by, and you're still out here, everybody else has gone home, so, good job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Take care.
See you.
Okay. Speed limit signs, Route 20. At the board's March 15th meeting, I was asked to remind Mass Highway that speed limit signs were to be placed on Route 20 from Richardson Corner to Oxbow Road, going west, as well as signs from Route 56 coming westbound. John Gulliver, District Highway Director, has answered my letter, and that is attached. He stated that Mass DOT District 3 office will be doing the following. First, they're gonna review the speed limit signage and the special speed regulation for Route 20 to ensure that all required signage is in place. Second, he's going to install regulatory speed limit signage on the same post as the permanent speed feedback signs that were installed as part of the interim improvements. Third, he's gonna upgrade the size of and replace as needed the existing speed limit signs that are too small and/or in poor condition. And lastly, he's gonna determine if additional confirmatory speed limit signs are warranted. He expects that items 1 through 3 will be completed in the next several weeks. The district staff will work to install confirmatory speed limit signs as appropriate prior to the end of this spring. And we're very happy that he's been so responsive.
Perfect. That's awesome. That is great news. Thank
Very
you.
appreciative.
He's a good guy.
Yep.
Yes, he is.
Seems to be.
Chapter 90, local transportation aid funding for FY 2017. Attached is a letter from Mass DOT notifying us that the pending final passage of the bond authorization fiscal year 2017, Chapter 90 apportionment for the town of Charlton is $634,106. These monies are used by the Highway Department to repair roads and other approved projects. And just a note, I know you know this, but these monies need to be on town roads, and the increase in the budget to the highway roads are for private roads, which he cannot use any of the Chapter 90 monies on. Open Space Committee, in working with CMRPC, Todd Gerard, our conservation agent, has stated that the town's Open Space Committee needs to be reestablished. The last Open Space Committee had 5 members, which is what we have advertised on cable and the town's website. We will notify you when we have interested parties to be appointed. Just as a reminder, one of the initiatives that you chose to do under the community compact was to update your open space plan, and part of that is reconvening the open space committee.
Just a quick question about that, and this goes back to the time on the planning board. The open space plan was a prerequisite for grants, and to get into certain grant rounds. If I remember correctly, the then town conservation agent said that she was this close to having it done. And then, I believe there was some give and take after Todd came in, and it was being worked on and stuff. Where are we with that?
At this point, and, with all due respect with Todd, he's had a lot of things on his plate.
Oh,
He's
I'm-
conservation, recreation, GIS, anybody that needs a map, he's doing that. We gave him the veterans agent for a while and then took it back because it was too much. And he's had no administrative assistant. So where we are with that right now is that the community compact is going to pay CMRPC to do our open space
Which is,
plan.
that's excellent. That's what I was getting at.
So, we're very fortunate, but there is still some work that we need to get done from our end and provide information. I can tell you that I had taken the file up to CMRPC, who was going to help us before this community compact, probably about 8 months ago. And they've had our thing, now they are gonna receive the monies to actually do it.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
I've given you your Gulfwood Road update and Potterville Road Bridge closure update. Highway Superintendent Foskett stated that Mass DOT Bridge Inspection Team did a safety analysis on this bridge on March 30th, and due to the failure of 4 out of 5 main beams, they contacted him and ordered that the bridge would need to be closed ASAP. The police department, as well as the fire department, bus company, and Town of Oxford DPW were all notified. Selectman McGrath arranged for 4 concrete barriers to be picked up at the Millbury State Garage, and these were used to safely barricade off the bridge. Proper signage has been placed. Signs were placed at Hilka Sand and Gravel to notify vehicles not to use their private entrance to bypass the closed bridge. He has stated he's started discussions with Mass DOT about any possible funding mechanisms that may be available to the town to reopen this bridge. And I will say that while I was at the State House today with the Governor and Lieutenant Governor, they did state that there is a new program for small bridges. And as you know, that bridge doesn't qualify because it needs to be
20 foot.
20 feet to qualify for federal funding. So this new bridge program, small bridge program, will be from 10 to 20 feet. So hopefully we will be in line and we will be applying for that grant.
Great. Any questions of the town administrator? Thank you, Ms. Craver.
Thank you.
Do we have any other business to come before the board? I just have one thing I'll do very, very quickly, is, not this past Saturday, but a week ago Saturday, the fire department held the wedding of the engines for the new tower truck, and I was, very happy that I could go and take part in that. It was a great ceremony. They are on the engine, they are honoring 2 firefighters from Charlton who have lost their lives in the line of duty over the years. It was nice for that recognition. Fairly good turnout. Weather was questionable, but it was a pretty good turnout. It was a great event. Both the chiefs from Southbridge and Sturbridge came and brought engines, and once everyone threw their cups on the water, they were parked on either side and just started dousing the truck. And then we got everyone together, did a ceremonial pushback into the into the Quonset hut where that is kept. So, and another nice thing they did was they actually had a plaque recognizing Captain Ed Knopf for his work on the grant for that. Was actually he was able to mount on the truck itself. So it was a great ceremony, and I once again would like to thank and recognize Captain Knopf and everyone who took part in getting that grant done and getting this whole thing done. And this is an engine we can be proud of as a town, and it's going to serve this town as well as the town's mutual aid that we have for decades to come. So it was a good day, and I just wanted to make mention of that.
Thanks.
Do you have anything else to come before the board? Then I would entertain a motion to go into executive session.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Zafirovich?
I move that we enter executive session on the Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21, for reasons, number one, to discuss the reputation, character, physical condition, or mental health, rather than professional competence of an individual, or discuss the discipline or dismissal of, or complaints or charges against a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual, for reason number three, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position or bargaining position of the public body, and for reason number six, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real estate if the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiation positions of the public body.
Second. We have a motion and a second. We'll go by roll call vote. Mrs. Zafirovich?
Aye.
Ms. Cooper?
Aye.
Mr. McGrath?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We are in executive session. Just a reminder that our next regular selectmen's meeting will be on Tuesday evening, April 26th. And once again, our annual town election will be held on May 7th, and the annual town meeting will be held on May 16th. We will exit executive session solely for the purpose of adjournment. It's been a long one, but thank you all and good night.